Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, I, Ravi Prakash, Director Urban Transport, welcome you all to this virtual annual flagship event, the 14th Urban Mobility India Conference 2021. The theme of the conference this year is Mobility for All, which focuses on providing equitable access and promoting inclusive urban transportation. I welcome everyone to the inaugural session presided over by Honorable Union Minister, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and Petroleum and Natural Gas, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, in the distinguished presence of Dr. Claudia Warning, Director General, German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, with Mr. Daniel Moser, Head Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, TUMI, Germany, as our keynote speaker, and under the guidance of respected Secretary Sir, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Durga Shankar Mishra ji. To begin with, I now request Secretary Sir to open the dialogue with his views and address his distinguished gathering. Sir.
Respected Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Dr. Claudia Warning, Director General of the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, Mr. Daniel Ernesto Moser, Head of the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, TUMI, Germany, colleagues in the ministry here, the delegates who have joined from different parts of the country, the secretaries, municipal commissioners, and those who have joined from different parts of the world. A very warm welcome to all of you on the launch of the 14th Urban Mobility and India Conference. The last edition of this was held in digital mode because there were the COVID-19 challenges were there. The challenges continues to be there, and that is why, with the direction of the Honorable Minister, we decided to hold this 14th again on a digital mode, and we hope that the world will be different when we go for the 15th Urban Mobility India Conference, and we will hold it, for which the announcement will be made by the Honorable Minister in the evening today, where we are going to hold the 15th conference. That should be in physical. The theme of today's conference is Mobility for All. This goes in line with our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of bringing ease in living for every citizen. It's the inclusive development of the cities. With very rapid urbanization, our cities are growing, and apart from the various other infrastructure, one of the most important thing which requires to bring ease in living of the citizens is the urban transport. And rightly so, today's theme is we are going to spend the whole next 6-8 hours on this theme. The national and the international experts, the practitioners who have really done work on the ground, from the state governments, from the government of India, from the city governments, and from the various other private sector, they are going to work on this and come out with various things which can improve the transport for all. Sir, we'll start with the plenary session on the economic development and its impact on the urban mobility. The country is going through a fast economic development. We aim to reach the $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years, $10 trillion economy in another 5 years. And for that, how is the transport going to play a very important role? That's a subject for the first plenary session. Then we go for the 5 breakout sessions where we focus on the statutory interventions which are required, the best practices within the country and outside the country, the sustainable and the green mobility, innovations in the urban transport, and the resilient transport. We end with a plenary session again with Azadi at 75. We are celebrating the 75th year of Indian independence, and mobility for all. What we are doing, we are going to conclude that validity session on this subject. Sir, to bring it to everybody's notice, we had on 25th of October a research symposium where the various postgraduate students, the PhD students from different parts of the country, they have submitted their papers. Those papers are presented before the experts of Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore, and CEPT Ahmedabad. And we have selected, the prize is going to be given by, it will be awarded by the Honorable Minister in the evening today. We are also going to award 12 different categories of excellence in urban transport. The various initiatives which have been taken, which have made difference to the people's life, they are going to be done in the evening. The ministry sees urban transport is not only as a transport but an urban transformation. A city which improves its transport, it transforms the whole, the scenario of the city to make it more a development prone. We are also focusing on affordable, sustainable and the green resilient urban transport. Our focus is on developing Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is the self-reliant, and to that extent various initiatives, innovations are being taken across the country, whether it is the metro sector, whether it is public transport, shared transport or various things. The Atmanirbhar Bharat is our focus. Our focus is on innovations and technology. We think that with the use of technology, whether it is IT or any other technology, we can address the issues at a large scale. Sir, to end with, when the world was facing the challenges of COVID-19, our ministry launched 3 different challenges. The first challenge was Cycle for Change. The next was Streets for People. And the third was Transport for All. That means we want to address through various measures, through the challenges measured, how we can address this issue and make transport as to bring ease in people's living, the citizens' living. So this is going to be our day's event, and I thank the German BMZ Director General for being present here. I also thank the TUMI's head who is going to deliver the keynote address, and our Honorable Minister who is gracing the inaugural session right now, and he is also going to give away the awards in the evening. I close here. Wish you all for a very good whole day session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking welcome address and also for setting the tone for the deliberations to be held online in UMI Conference 2021 this afternoon. We now invite the views and perspective of Mr. Daniel Moser, TUMI. Mr. Moser is Management Head of the TUMI at GIZ. In his position, he provides management and strategic development of the initiatives and its activities. In his current position, he is also advising the Government of Germany and the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development on sustainable urban mobility. We seek his creative and thoughtful inputs as I request him to deliver his keynote address. Mr. Daniel, please.
The presentation on your side, and you can see me in video if you want. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, Honorable State Secretary, honorable dignities, dear organizers and participants, thank you very much. My name is Daniel Moser, and I'm honored to hold this keynote address at the Urban Mobility India conference with the theme Mobility for All. And first, let me congratulate on the very important theme, Mobility for All. Social cohesion and mobility for all is a topic which cannot be understated as the world is moving through and out of the pandemic. Navigating towards a world with better mobility for all in the age of the climate crisis is a pressing challenge of our time. As part of our strategies, we can think of transportation primarily in its function to provide access. Access to food, access to jobs, access to education, goods and services, access to social interaction. And it's important to stress here the nexus between cities and mobilities. Cities themselves primarily exist for the purpose of providing access and enabling people to interact. And if we look at cities and the development of cities in the last 70 years, we can detect the strong influence of cars after the Second World War and over the course of the 1950s to the 1980s. Cars strongly affect the development of cities globally, and you can see this on the picture of the highway above, how the highway is pushing the city to the fringes and it's becoming a centerpiece of the city himself. So the provision of access is monopolized, distances increase. This means energy input explodes, and alternative modes of transport, such as cycling and walking or public transport, become stigmatized, thus creating a vicious cycle of car dependence, where the car is increasingly becoming the monopolized mode of transport. And if we look at urban development globally, and you can see a picture of the suburbs of Mexico City above, you do see that urban development around the world is going faster and faster. Now it's really one of the critical moments where we can actively design futures. We have a very short window of opportunity of roughly 15 years left. And working globally, we do have the choice to decide if we want to look the future like the picture above, the suburbs of Mexico City, with billions of people trapped in low accessibility, low quality of life, and configurations with high carbon intensity. So why 15 years? 15 years because more urban areas will be constructed during the first 3 decades of the 21st century than all of history. And the expansion of urban areas is twice as fast as urban population grows. So this means cities are not growing upwards, but are growing sidewards. And this leads to the destruction of bioreserves, of forests and agricultural land, and obviously also to all the other things mentioned before, to the monopolization of a very few transport modes, namely the car, and to the marginalization of other transport modes, and to situations of access to goods, services, and to interaction with people. China used more cement in the last 3 years than the US used in the entire 20th century. And it's clear that this kind of expansion is not sustainable. So we have to find new ways of expanding and growing our cities in a sustainable way, which can lead to better quality of life. So if the transport infrastructure, as explained above, lends itself to the form of the city, then by designing transport in the right way, we can design cities in better ways. And this means we do have also an opportunity through the lens of mobility to design the cities of the 21st century. So if we look at urban transportation really is the make and break of the global climate agenda. It's 23% of global carbon emissions. It's 61% of global oil demand. And if we are going ahead with a business as usual scenario, we are going to see a doubling of emissions till 2050. We do see more than 10 billion trips per day, and the urban share of these trips is rapidly increasing. So transport plays a particular role as part of our actions to tackle global climate change. The dynamics of carbon emission growth related to transport can be stressed by looking at the European 27 nations group that is highly urbanized, typically in the region of 60 to 80%, and where we have seen over the last 20 years significant efforts to reduce carbon emissions, with some successes, as you can see on the chart on the right, in the fields of energy, households, industry, but no progress at all in the transport sector. So transport really is the make and break of the global climate agenda. As we're moving to urbanization, we can see also a great urban mobility opportunity. If we look at cities, as we've looked at them already in the last minutes, we can see that cities are a great creator of wealth. Just a relatively small number of 150 of the largest metropolitan economies accounting for 14% of the global population, generate 41% of global GDP. So the urbanization trend which we're seeing is not only a challenge, but really it is also a significant opportunity as we are seeing humanity's great move to cities. Let me go into the global urban mobility a little bit further. Urban mobility in itself is a necessary precondition towards the provision of the Agenda 2030. On the left, you see the Agenda 2030 and all the relevant sustainable development goals which are related to the transport sector, where transport is a precondition towards actually making the Agenda 2030 happen. And without mobility, we do not see any access to work, to education, to health, to inclusion, to economic development, and to a dignified life. So how exactly could a positive, climate-friendly future of mobility look like in cities, and how can we connect the urban mobility opportunity with the future of better life in cities? That's what I want to talk about together with you, and I'm looking forward also to the discussions later today. How can the hyperlocal city look like in the age of the climate crisis? The hyperlocal city can be a key element for city making in the age of the climate crisis. So before diving into the hyperlocal city, let me share with you a couple of principles. What is the hyperlocal city? So hyperlocal city is a city in which all residents can meet all their needs within a 15-minute walk or a bicycle ride from their homes. It's a city in which hyper proximity prioritizes multimodal transportation and pedestrians rather than cars. And every area in the city is not a single purpose area, but an area which serves multiple purposes. The hyperlocal city centers on the integration of land use and transport planning, and it's most successful if it's implemented as part of a citywide city-led strategy that strongly engages with local people. So the hyperlocal city really revolves around 5 main principles: density, diversity, proximity, ubiquity, and digitalization. The concept is originating from the French Colombian academic Carlos Moreno. And the core proposal is what he called the 15-minute city, is that urban space should be designed so that residents are able to meet all their daily needs within a short 15-minute walk or cycle from their home. So this intra-urban localization, that you try to build neighborhoods which enable the population of that neighborhood to do everything which is needed in their everyday life just by a short walk, is really quite attractive. So that means that the hyperlocal city is quickly becoming a concept globally in cities around the world, from Bogota to Barcelona, from Portland to Paris, a concept which is trying to build cities in more complete ways that help the population of those cities really get around their everyday life in the best and most easy way. So let me show you how this can look like. When we look at the 5 pillars of a hyperlocal minute city, we see the different aspects. So the density, the diversity, the proximity, the ubiquity, and the digitalization. So all of these elements go together in the hyperlocal city and create a hyperlocal neighborhood. So the density refers to the number of people per square kilometer, the diversity towards the mixed use of the neighborhood, the healthy mix between residential, commercial, entertainment, culture, and people. The proximity towards the little time people spend to travel and the time people actually do have at their destinations. The ubiquity, which means that the neighborhoods are available and affordable, and the digitalization, which allows people to work from home and support digital tools necessary for online payments, but also to use urban services such as bike sharing or other urban services. If we dive a little bit deeper in the features of a hyperlocal neighborhood, we do see quite a set of features that define a neighborhood. And this is really a nearly complete list of features in the hyperlocal neighborhood. You see the school, the lifelong learning opportunities, you see the shopping opportunities, but you do also see the local playgrounds and parks, the green streets and spaces, the community gardens, sports and recreation facilities, safety and safe streets, as well as spaces, affordable housing options, the ability to age, because everything is accessible also for people that have difficulties walking, the diversity in housing, so there's something for the different needs of the population, and the walkability, the safe cycling networks, the public transport availability, the connectedness with other parts of the city as well as the region, and obviously also the local employment opportunities. A hyperlocal neighborhood is based on a strong economy where jobs are present in the neighborhood, not only residential, but also jobs. So there are quite some examples, and I want to quickly show you a couple of examples that explain in the best way how this approach can look like. The hyperlocal and hyperproximity was a key pillar of the re-election campaign of Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, in 2020. So the approach designed by the Mayor of Paris is aimed to cut air pollution and to cut hours lost to commuting, and by this improving the quality of life of people in Paris and to help the city to achieve its plan to become carbon neutral by 2050. Paris already has, and I'm sure many of you have seen this over the last year and the last years, massively scaled up construction of protected pedestrian and cycleways, and aims to turn the city into a myriad of neighborhoods where you can find everything you need within a 15-minute walk or cycle from home. Mayor Hidalgo's People First plans include installing a cycle path on every street and on every bridge in Paris. And this is enabled in part by taking away on-street parking spaces to other uses, such as cycle lanes, but also increasing office space and co-working hubs in neighborhoods that lack them, expanding the uses of infrastructure and buildings outside of standard hours, and encouraging people to use their local shops and also create small parks in school playgrounds that would be open to local people outside of the school hours to combat the city's lack of public green space. One of the most distinctive features of the 15-minute neighborhood in Paris is the transformation of its streets from places for traffic and cars to pass through, which you see on the picture above, towards places to be, where city life happens and everyday destinations to work, learn, and play are just outside of the door and just a doorstep away really from everybody's home. The advantage of doing so is creating nicer neighborhoods with less noise, less air pollution, and a comfortable microclimate supported by trees and green spaces. So you can see that the 15-minute city, which is being put into reality in Paris, really also is a huge effort in beautification and making the city more beautiful for its residents. I've already talked about the transportation in the 15-minute city. And to make it more clear, I want to show you the reverse traffic pyramid. So in the 15-minute city, you can see that the traffic pyramid is turned upside down. So walking and running are the key elements, as well as cycling in the 15-minute city. Then you have public transportation, which connects the different parts of the cities. You do have taxis and other modes of transports, which help to cater to more special needs. And then there's car sharing cars, which enables us to use the car in a moment when it's needed. And obviously there's also the possibility to own a car and to take a car if the car ownership is needed. Flying is really not an option in cities, but it's, I think, you can put it here for the sake of completeness, but really the 15-minute city or the hyperlocal city is based on walking and cycling. Let me show you another example of where this has been done, Barcelona. Barcelona has a system called superblocks. You know Barcelona, and you see, when you look at it from above, the city is divided into a system of grids. And this system of grids is consisting of blocks. One of them you can see on the picture of 400 by 400 meters. And these blocks are then used, and the availability and quality of public space for leisure and community activities is improved. Already other cities around the world, such as Madrid, for example, have announced plans to adopt the approach of Barcelona in transitioning its city towards a city of hyperlocal neighborhoods to support the city's revival for after the pandemic. If you look at the super blocks, you see a very distinct system. So 9 blocks are being taken, and these blocks create one super block. That's what you see on the right of this picture. And in this super block, traffic is greatly reduced. Traffic is happening outside of the super block. And inside the super block, the focus is on the quality of life and the interaction of people which live inside the super block. So cycling, walking, and light modes of transport are supported inside the super blocks, while the access to the rest of the city is still readily available for everybody by going to the arteries outside and around the superblock. A similar but more extreme approach is being taken in Stockholm. The Sweden's Street Move project aims to introduce curb elements, such as what you see on the picture to the left, with possibilities for seating, possibilities to park the bike or the electric scooter, as well as green space, to every street in the nation by 2030. This initiative allows local communities to become co-architects of their own streets. So these little elements, these adaptable elements which you see there, really are elements where the residents of the streets are asked to put the elements which they would like to see in their streets through workshops and consultations to control how much street space they want to use for parking or for other public uses. So really, it's quite a flexible concept which is being rolled out experimentally already in Stockholm, but with many more cities ready to join. And the ultimate goal is hugely ambitious: to rethink every street in the country in just a decade, so that every street in Sweden is healthy, sustainable, and vibrant by 2030. So this really is a concept to appreciate all the richness of life which is happening on streets, and building streets in a way that they're catering to the residents. This is how a transformation of a 1-minute street can look like in Sweden. This is really also a picture of how transformation towards hyperlocal neighborhoods can look like everywhere around the world. So the elements, again, are similar to the ones which we've seen earlier in Paris, with elements being taken towards a street that enable green space, that support a better microclimate, better public spaces for seating, and being able to sit outside and spend the day in interaction with the neighborhood. And this is also something which we are seeing by the fantastic ambitions in India towards the hyperlocal city and a better quality of life. The Cycles for Change work of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs shows hand-on how a hyperlocal city can be created. Creating better conditions for cycling is a key element to the modern metropolis in the 21st century. And Cycle for Change is getting it right. It's great to see this work. Similar, Streets for People embodies elements of the hyperlocal city. This work by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs shows that the hyperlocal city in its core is about creating public spaces and catering to different needs of society, neighborhood by neighborhood. Transforming streets for higher quality of life and creating the future of urban mobility needs a strong vision and political will. Both can be seen in the Streets for People program. The street above shows the wide variety of a high quality urban street, with green spaces, opportunities for walking, shops, and residential spaces. So really a lot of elements of a hyperlocal city can be seen through the Streets for People program. Let's zoom out a little bit towards the city level, because we have talked so much about the neighborhoods. I want to show you this example from Helsinki. So what you're seeing on the left is a map of Helsinki. And you see in this map, you see the key railway corridors, the key transit corridors of Helsinki. And the idea here is to take the hyperlocal neighborhood to the city level. So working along existing high capacity transport corridors, the city is re-densifying and smartly uses the urban opportunities at hand. The concept, which is pursued in Helsinki, aims to allow the city to double its population within its existing boundaries by re-densifying around train stations and rail corridors, creating hyperlocal neighborhoods at places that already are connected with the city as a whole. So Helsinki 2.0 is achieving 100% population growth, while at the same time elevating quality of life. This is quite impressive if you think about it. So the basic concept of a hyperlocal city is not really a city at all. It's a connection of hyperlocal neighborhoods. Every hyperlocal neighborhood is an archipelago, and the complete connected hyperlocal city is a city where hyperlocal neighborhoods are connected with strong public transport backgrounds, thus creating a network of connected hyperlocal neighborhoods. And this really brings us back to the beginning. We heard that cities should be machines for connecting humans. So cities of the future are in our hand. We do have the opportunity to choose between the left and the right. The sprawling, unconnected city, which traps us into low accessibility, bad quality of life, or the hyperlocal connected city, which nourishes human interaction and enables a better quality of life and a better standard of wealth for everybody, really. So mobility for everybody means creating a network of hyperlocal cities on the city level. So let me close.
Excuse me, Mr. Daniel. Sorry, sir.
Yes. Let me close this by bringing back the key opportunities that are there to design the future of our cities, and look at these four elements again. So the city in which all residents can meet their needs, the city that prioritizes multimodal transportation, the integration of land use and transport planning, and the main principles: density, diversity, proximity, ubiquity, and digitalization. Let me also thank, at last, the Federal Ministry of Economic Development for the support in creating the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, and thank again, dear Honorable Minister, Honorable State Secretary, Honorable dignitaries, dear organizers and participants. Thank you very much for setting up this exciting conference. I'm looking forward to the rest of the program. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel, for your informative keynote address. Our next speaker is Dr. Claudia Warning, Director General for Asia, Southeastern and Eastern Europe, Middle East, Latin America, Civil Society and Churches at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. She has vast experience in development from her work in various governmental and non-governmental organizations and at Federal Ministry of Regional Planning, Building and Urban Development. Now I invite Dr. Warning for a special address. Dr. Warning.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm very sorry. I didn't see that this was unmuted. So I'll restart. A very good afternoon, Mr. Hardip Puri, Honorable Minister, Government of India, and Mr. D.S. Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to address such a vast gathering of participants who are and will be working in the urban transport field for enhancing the quality of life across India and other parts of the world. And let me especially thank Mr. Moser, who set the tone of this gathering today. On behalf of the government of Germany, I would like to express that we are very pleased to contribute to the sustainable urban mobility sector of India and to rely on such strong collaboration with many partners, even in the challenging times of COVID-19. The Indo-German Green Urban Mobility Partnership, launched in 2019, is a significant milestone towards achieving cleaner and green environment while moving people and not vehicles. Both in Germany and India, we are at the beginning of a mobility revolution. And there are many things we can learn from each other. In the Green Urban Mobility Partnership, we have the space for dialogue, instruments for cooperation, and the relevant financing at our disposal. Until 2023, we envisage commitments of 1 billion euros for green urban mobility projects. But the Indo-German cooperation on sustainable urban mobility goes way beyond this euro 1 billion commitment of 2019. With the Nagpur Metro already operational and ongoing implementation of the Mumbai Metro, we are progressing towards a greener and innovative future, linking big infrastructure with intelligent planning and integration of mobility systems. With the introduction of the electric hybrid ferries as part of the integrated Kochi water metro and the electric buses in the state of Tamil Nadu, under the bus system modernization program, India is striving towards low-emission cities. And we are more than happy to support and also learn from innovation in mobility systems at scale for replication in other parts of the world, including Germany. The government of India, in its annual budget 2021-22, has announced the bus financing program to the tune of 18,000 crore rupees, or 2 billion euros approximately. This is a very necessary effort, as it is essential to move from individual to mass public transport in not just metropolitan cities, but also Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. The Indo-German Green Urban Mobility Partnership will further strengthen these efforts with the launch of the Green Urban Mobility Challenge, inviting for inclusive and innovative green urban transport solutions. Cities and towns in India are strongly encouraged to join the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in this endeavor. Besides large-scale investments, Germany has been supporting the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs at various levels through technical cooperation, e.g. the project Integrated Sustainable Urban Transport Systems for Smart Cities. Both the Indian and the German government aim here at improving the planning and implementation of sustainable urban transport in India, with a particular focus on the 3 smart cities of Bhubaneswar, Coimbatore, and Kochi, to promote sustainable low-carbon mobility planning, particularly public transport, non-motorized transport, and multimodal integration. At the national level, a framework for capacity building and training initiatives in urban transport and at the state and city level is being developed. And we are pleased to share that so far, more than 7,000 people have already joined various training programs. Also, local authorities are supported to implement various campaigns to make people and institutions aware about the need of sustainable transportation. We have also started working on climate-friendly e-mobility with the Ministry of Heavy Industries as a partner. The main objective here is to improve the coupling of the energy and transport sectors and to increase renewable energy sourcing for climate-friendly e-mobility solutions. We are happy to contribute and deepen this technical cooperation, as we see in particular with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, an innovative and strong partner that strongly pushes the issue of access to mobility and sustainability, climate change solutions, and air quality. It is heartening to see that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is taking the lead in launching an array of projects focusing on digitalization to improve the infrastructure and digital delivery of public services. I'm looking forward to launch the toolkit Creating Framework for Mobility and Services in Indian Cities by you, Honorable Union Minister, and the Secretary of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Initiatives like these will act as guiding beacon to Indian cities to develop data-driven mobility solutions. It will also help in institutionalization, data-driven informed decision-making at the highest level. It is also fascinating to see that data-driven innovations in mobility are being promoted by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs through the open challenges like the Smart Move. We are delighted to support such innovations to urban mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, just 3 days before the start of the climate conference in Glasgow, we will see and listen to many good examples today how mobility for all can be made sustainable, tackling the challenge of climate change and providing opportunities for green growth and good jobs. Let me sincerely thank the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and many other Indian partners on the national and subnational level, from private sector and think tanks. You are pushing the sustainability aspects of urban mobility so strongly, and partners worldwide can learn from it. We are convinced that India can and must be part of global solutions, even though it has not contributed as much to the global problem of climate change as so-called developed nations. This is why, as Germany, we are offering a long-term and trustful cooperation on jointly achieving the Paris climate goals and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, bringing together climate and development in the best interest of India. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude with a very practical aspect of our joint work. After revealing the logo of our Green Urban Mobility Partnership at the last year's UMI, it is my pleasure to announce today the launch of the first edition of newsletter of partnership showing concrete examples of Indian and German collaboration. Honorable Minister, dear Secretary and distinguished guests, I'm looking forward to your contributions and today's deliberations. Thank you so much for your attention and
Thank you, Madam, for your special address. We now have a couple of publications that are to be released. May I now request Honorable Union Minister, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and Petroleum and Natural Gas, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, to kindly release a film, India at 75 Mobility for All, which showcases the various initiatives taken by MoHUA to ensure the mobility needs for all.
Independent India's economic development was envisioned by Mahatma Gandhi through Sarvodaya and Antyodaya. Following the view, Sustainable Development Goals do believes in equity and inclusivity, such that no one is left behind.
Our motto is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, meaning together everyone's growth with everyone's trust.
Pursuing the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, India's urban transportation is being treated as urban transformation at a colossal scale. Massive initiatives have been rolled out to ensure the mobility needs for all are met through sustainable, efficient and safe transport system enhanced with technology. Focusing on the marginalized section of the society, the public transport is being strengthened by making special provisions for women, children, elderly and specially abled, which creates positive impact on the economic growth and quality of life. Accessible and well-connected NMT facilities were created to promote healthy travel behavior. These efforts were empowered with the help of policies, reforms and regulations. The urban transport demand is being efficiently met through adoption of technology and integrated fare payments, which increases the acceptance and safety of commuters. Metro Neo, Metro Light, Hybrid and electric mobility is being inducted as new public transport mobility paradigm for the growth of cities, along with enhanced regional connectivity through rapid rail transit system, indigenization and standardization for large infrastructure projects is promoted under Make in India mission.
यहां से शुरू होकर अगले 25 वर्ष की यात्रा, जब हम आजादी के शताब्दी मनाएंगे, नए भारत के सृजन का ये अमृत काल है.
Reflecting upon the words of our Honorable Prime Minister, India, standing at 75th celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, looks towards an inclusive future by 2047. The prospect needs to be driven by economic, environmental and social advancement in a manner that benefit both today and future generations. The prospect needs to be driven by economic, environmental and social advancement in a manner that benefit both today and future generations.
Sir, I now request you to kindly release the toolkit on mobility as a service, MAS, which is a web-based platform and will act as an open source knowledge resource. Sir, the third release is a source book on triple P arrangement for urban bus operations in India. Next, sir, is a compendium of smart sustainable urban transport and Gump newsletter to be released. So the next release is a compendium of Smart Move, Innovative Urban Mobility Challenge 2021. Smart Move, Innovative Urban Mobility Challenge. So the sixth release is on Service and Bus Plan for City Bus Operations, ESCBS cities, including Chandigarh and Mira Bhayandar. And finally, a release on non-motorized transport campaign logo on India's cycling and active street capital developed by Kochi city to promote green and healthy mobility. May I now request our Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, to deliver his inaugural address, sir.
Mr. Daniel Ernesto Moza, Dr. Claudia Warning, colleagues, distinguished guests from India and Germany, and all other who are virtually joined with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all of you to this virtual edition of the 14th Urban Mobility Conference in Expo 2021. The urban population globally in 2020 accounted for 56% of the total global population. This is up from 30% in 1950 and is expected to increase to 60% by 2030. Out of this, almost 90% of the increase is anticipated to be in Asia and Africa. This accelerated urbanization is the driving force behind the need for increased transportation of people and goods, which is responsible in turn for more than 30% of the world's energy consumption. This only serves to reiterate that sustainable mobility and universal access is crucial for achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. India will be in the forefront of sustainability in urban transportation. The National Urban Transport Policy of 2006 emphasized the movement of people rather than vehicles. Following that vision document and policy statements related to urban transportations are being formulated, India's prominent role in the formulation of the SDGs asserts her prominence to the successful achievement of these goals. The discussion on urban mobility in India stands transformed for two reasons. First, technology has enabled real-time analysis of transport and traffic patterns that was previously not possible. Second, public sector agencies have now begun to encourage the use of public transportation through new mobility business models such as on-demand and multimodal trip planning applications. It can be argued now that moving people has translated to moving people from all sections of society, while maintaining that private vehicles on the street need to be discouraged to the extent possible. This has brought about a conscious shift in policy paradigm of the country to have boutique solutions that are designed to suit the needs of every section of society. In the words of our Prime Minister, the 21st century India remains fully committed to moving forward with the goal of clean and modern mobility. In order to achieve mobility for all, promotion of seamlessly integrated urban transport and universal accessibility, my ministry had produced the Metro Rail Policy 2017. This policy stresses the induction of mass transit mediums, which has not only provided a truly reliable and accessible transit medium for the vulnerable sections, but also mandates ensuring a more compact and walkable development pattern for users. With about 733 kilometers of operational network in 18 cities and another 1,046 in the pipeline in 27 cities, the ministry endeavors to connect 50 cities and towns by 2024 with metro network. This includes other rail-based systems such as Metro Light and Metro Neo, which are tailor-made to serve the aspirations of Tier 2 and Tier 3 Indian cities. It is the view of my ministry that high capital investment should not deter the vision of smaller towns and cities to have a modern yet affordable public transport system for all. Differing Indian cities are either implementing or looking at new public transport systems, be it Metro, Metro Light, Metro Neo, high-capacity buses, in addition to uplifting infrastructure for non-motorized transport, improvement by coming up with dedicated cycle lanes, improved footpaths, and other street-side infrastructure. The aim is to introduce high-quality footpaths, segregated cycle tracks, safe pedestrian crossing, and regulated on-streets parking, basically improving accessibility for citizens regardless of age, gender, and physical ability. In the aftermath of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the following quote from Secretary General Antonio Guterres is extremely relevant. He said, and I quote, "The COVID-19 crisis is an opportunity to reimagine human mobility. This is increasingly germane since India is likely to experience a behavioral change in urban mobility. This crisis also presents an opportunity to guide the recovery of urban transport towards long-term development goals. To fulfill these needs, India is witnessing arrival of a new generation of mobility discourses which are nuanced enough to provide sustainable urban mobility." I would also like to inform those of you who are participating in today's program that a few days ago, India crossed the 1 billion vaccine doses mark. We are also back to pre-COVID levels of energy consumption. We are also almost back to pre-COVID levels of air transportation, but our efforts to ensure that we are in a position to withstand the challenges posed by this pandemic or any future occurrence, including in the urban mobility sector, will be strengthened as we go along. I once again welcome all of you, and I wish you very fruitful deliberations for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. You have touched upon the core issue in mobility for all. It provides a guidelines to chalk out the future initiatives in inclusive mobility. As we now conclude the inaugural session, may I request Sri Jaideep, OSD, UT and ex-officio Joint Secretary, to please propose a formal vote of thanks to the August gathering. Sir.
It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs at the inaugural session of the 14th Urban Mobility India Conference. We are extremely thankful to Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, Honorable Minister, Housing and Urban Affairs and Petroleum and Natural Gas, for his gracious presence and sparing time from his extremely busy schedule to deliver the inaugural address. Our special thanks are due to Dr. Claudia Warning, Director General, German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. We are extremely grateful to Mr. Daniel Ernesto Moser, Head Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative Germany, for delivering the keynote address and enlightening the August gathering with his rich experience. We are thankful to Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Durga Shankar Mishra Sir, for his welcome address and for his continued guidance and support at all stages in organizing mega event. We are thankful to all the chairpersons, speakers and moderators for participating in this event. We are also grateful to all the senior officers participating from the central ministries, state government and union territories. We look forward to them in taking forward the policies for improvement of urban transport in the country. With these few words, I welcome you all once again to this 14th Urban Mobility India Conference, which is on the theme Mobility for All. I am confident that this year's conference shall be enriching and fruitful for all the participants. Thank you.